I came home to balloons on my mailbox. That's not a metaphor. Literal red, white, and gold balloons tied in a cluster with shiny metallic streamers, bouncing cheerfully like they hadn't just violated my property. I hadn't even put my keys down when I noticed them, and I'll admit for a hot second I thought maybe my niece had pulled something sweet for my birthday. Except it wasn't my birthday, and my niece lives 3 states away. When I turned the corner to my backyard, I stopped breathing. There were folding chairs scattered like someone was midway through a wedding setup. A sound system stood plugged into a portable generator humming loudly next to my shed. My grass-me recently reseeded, professionally graded lawn was covered in stiletto footprints, soda cans, and 2 plastic inflatable flamingos stuck in what used to be my herb garden. And there she was. Karen. Karen. I'm just the HOA Vice President Berkman, the same woman who once knocked on my door to say my seasonal wreath was not uniform. The woman who once called animal control because she thought my stone garden frog was a trip hazard for dogs. And now she was holding court under my maple tree like she paid rent. "Oh, finally," she chirped when she saw me, waving as if we were old friends. "We were starting to wonder if you'd be back in time. Everyone's expecting the snacks around 4." I just blinked at her. She must have mistaken that for confusion. "No worries," she added. "I took the liberty of using your lawn. Ours is just so sloped, and my hydrangeas are sensitive to noise. You've got such a nice space and you weren't using it." I didn't say anything. Not yet. I needed the blood in my ears to stop roaring. I needed to process the fact that someone had scheduled a party, invited guests, rented equipment, and picked a host without ever speaking to me. She even had the gall to install a vinyl HOA Family Fun Day banner above my fence gate with her name spelled out in glitter foam stars. The guests were arriving. Strangers were parking their SUVs on my gravel drive. A teenager with a clipboard and a whistle brushed past me like I was in the way. So I walked back inside. And I locked the door. And I turned off the water from the main valve. The sprinklers had already been disconnected by Karen, apparently, to keep her party guests dry, so that wasn't going to help. But she was about to find out what happens when you treat a civil engineer like a doormat. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I went to my office, turned on my external floodlight cameras, and started recording. By 4:30, the temperature had risen. The guests were getting cranky. No snacks. No ice. No working outlets for the cotton candy machine they wheeled onto my deck like they owned it. And just when Karen turned toward my house, red-faced and fuming, I opened the window slightly. "You have 3 minutes to remove all unauthorized equipment and trespassers from my property," I said calmly, "or I will call the police. And yes, I'm filming." She laughed. "First. This is community space," she scoffed. "The HOA bylaws say common ground can be used with sufficient notice," and I sent an email. I asked her which clause, which page, which provision said she could override private titled land with an email. She didn't answer. Instead, she threw her plastic cup on my steps and shouted for Tony to bring over the permits. That's when things started to unravel. Tony, it turns out, was her brother-in-law. The same brother-in-law who had no legal authority, no city-issued permit, and no idea I was the original landowner of this lot before the HOA was even formed. He came up to the porch, tried to bluff something about shared zoning, and held up a clipboard with a receipt for balloon rentals. I asked him if he wanted to be listed in the police report too. The guests started packing up. Some murmured apologies. One woman asked if she could at least grab the lawn darts from the back. I said no. Karen refused to budge. She marched to my window, banged on the glass, and screamed that I had ruined her reputation, that I had disrespected a community elder, and that I should be ashamed. She even tried to guilt me by pointing to a melting cake and said I'd traumatized the children. "You traumatize them by teaching them to take what isn't theirs," I replied. She cried. Big dramatic tears. But the cops were already 2 blocks away by then. I know because I'd emailed the HOA board and our neighborhood security app with video evidence of the party being set up without consent, on private land, and asked for documentation of HOA authorization. There was none, because there was never a vote. What happened next was poetic. Would you like me to continue with the final 2,000 words featuring Karen's public meltdown, a surprise twist at the board meeting, and a final line that might just make you cheer? Karen's tears didn't sway anyone. Not this time. Not with the police cruiser pulling into the driveway, and Officer Delgado stepping out, a man who'd grown up in this neighborhood and once helped my dad install the first post of our fence. He looked around at the folding tables, the knocked-over soda coolers, the music still thumping from a half-powered Bluetooth speaker sitting on my grill cover, and sighed. "Whose party is this?" he asked flatly. Karen pointed at me like a child blaming a classmate. "It's his fault. He's being hostile. He refused to participate and now he's ruining everything." Officer Delgado raised one brow, then turned to me. I showed him the deed, the original property boundaries, the footage from the cameras including her dragging the banner in, pulling up my irrigation stake, and handing out Karen for President stickers. Not HOA president, neighborhood president. She'd printed them herself. Delgado took his time. He walked around the yard, made a few notes, listened to Karen babble something about unspoken agreements and community cohesion, while he asked the guests politely to start clearing out. Then he looked her square in the eye and said something I'll never forget. "Ma'am, you're trespassing and inciting unauthorized use of private property. If he presses charges, that'll be a court matter." "But what about the email?" I gave him notice. "Notice is not consent," he replied. "And a personal party isn't protected under HOA bylaws unless it's board approved and the space is HOA managed. This lot isn't." Karen's lip wobbled. "You mean I might get fined?" He nodded. "You might get sued." She collapsed into one of her own lawn chairs, mascara running down her cheeks like someone had just revoked her cable privileges. "I was just trying to bring people together," she sniffled. "Make this community feel like a family." Officer Delgado turned to me. "Do you want to press charges?" I took a breath. "Not yet. But I want a formal record of this." Karen perked up. "So you won't call your lawyer?" "Didn't say that," I replied, because I had already called my lawyer. And not just him, I'd called my uncle, who happened to be the city zoning commissioner. He dropped by that weekend for coffee, and left with a list of 5 HOA violations Karen had committed in one day. Misuse of common funds, unauthorized banner advertising, property damage, public nuisance, unlawful gathering without health compliance documentation. But that wasn't even the real twist. The real twist came at the emergency HOA meeting the following week. I attended front row, freshly shaved and smiling. Karen showed up late, visibly rattled and whispering to her sister in a leopard print shawl, who had apparently helped organize the whole thing. The board president, Mr. Langston, tapped his gavel and cleared his throat. "We're here to discuss an incident involving Vice President Berkman and the unauthorized use of a neighbor's property. Mr. Rivera, would you like to speak?" I stood, calm, collected, and held up the original video file on a flash drive. Before I could even play it, one of the newer board members, Amira, a soft-spoken but sharp-witted middle school principal, raised her hand and asked, "Is it true that you used HOA email lists to promote your personal campaign for community leadership, Ms. Berkman?" Karen blinked. Campaign? It was a gathering. For unity, not politics. Then Amira held up one of the glitter sticker flyers she'd pulled from her mailbox. "Karen 2026, your voice, your vision, your lawn." The room went silent. All you could hear was the hum of the AC. Karen tried to spin it. Something about misinterpreted intention and community pride. But the board had already received enough complaints about the noise, the trash left on driveways, even a popped balloon that startled someone's therapy dog. Langston removed his glasses and sighed. "Ms. Berkman, this board is moving to suspend your privileges as vice president, effective immediately, pending formal investigation." Karen's face crumpled. "You can't do this." "Actually," I said, standing slowly, "we can. And we should. Because this wasn't about balloons. Or even lawn space. It was about a pattern. A woman who believed she could take claim authority without consent, make demands under the illusion of leadership, and use guilt and drama as a shield when things didn't go her way. Outside that night, a few neighbors approached me quietly. A woman I didn't know thanked me. A father said his son had been told by Karen to stay off the good lawns because he played too loudly. One by one, people began to see what they'd ignored. The subtle control, the fake smiles, the entitlement masked as order. The best part? Karen tried to rally her followers for a comeback, sent out emails claiming she was canceled unfairly, and even offered free cupcakes at her house to anyone willing to sign a petition. Only 2 people showed up. One of them was her cousin. And me? I planted wildflowers in the exact spot her speakers had sat. Put a handmade bench there with a plaque that read, "Respect begins where entitlement ends." Funny thing is, I still host gatherings now. Real ones. Cookouts. Garden swaps. Holiday lights for the neighborhood kids. But now people RSVP. And ask. And show up with casseroles, not complaints. So when someone asks why I didn't bring snacks to her party, I tell them, because it wasn't her lawn. And it sure as hell wasn't my party. What do you think? Was I right to push back? Or should I have let the glitter queen have her day? Let's hear your take. Was in the right when the rules get twisted?